They got money for wars but can't feed the poor like Tupac said. They got money for wars but can't feed the poor like Tupac said. They got money for wars but can't feed the poor like Tupac said.
From the land of the free to the fog of propaganda. Welcome to another episode, a special episode in the ICU, where we put the empire under the microscope. Today's patient in the ICU is the global normalization of war, especially when it's dressed in democracy, dipped in denial, and delivered with deadly precision. We're calling this episode Warmongering in the ICU, the programming behind acceptable atrocities. Because this is more than a war on bodies. It is a war on our memory, our collective memory. It's a war on our empathy. It's a war on our spiritual clarity. We've entered an age where the most militarized state in the Middle East is called the victim. Where biblical narratives are co-opted to justify ethnic cleansing. When one side's rockets are called terror, but the other's bunker busters are called protection. So, we are reclaiming truth and slowing this down because they use speed to cloud our view. I'm still here. Still your reluctant therapist to the national and global psyche, sitting across the couch from Uncle Donald, and now across from the manufactured consent. And we are renaming things. We are naming the patterns. We are not staying silent anymore. Because if we don't, the war never ends. Welcome to ICU, where we don't rant, we reframe. Today's episode is not safe for illusions. It's not safe for sanitized history or the tidy myth of noble wars. It is, like every single ICU episode, a truth reckoning, a sacred diagnosis, a refusal to remain anesthetized, and to begin. We start with this simple yet searing question. How did we get here? Again. How did we end up in another era where billions fund bombs, where children are butchered under the banner of defense, and where the most dangerous empire on earth keeps claiming the moral high ground? This is about Israel. This is about Iran. This is about Trump, the US and global war machine. But more than that, this is about the programming of your mind to accept atrocities as policy, to just scheme through the devastations caused across the globe because we've been reframed or programmed to perceive them in a certain light. I want you to picture this. It's late, and I'm on the couch in the ICU, across from Uncle Donald. Sharp suit, even sharper rhetoric, a force of polished aggression. And we know he plays that role very well. And behind him, on the screen, relentless scenes, Israeli bombers sweeping Gaza, children trapped in dust and silence. US lawmakers praising precision in our strikes, while all the while ignoring the lives that have been vaporized. Not really. All of us, let's all feel the collective pulse of a global psyche that has accepted this horror as normal. The air is thick, not just from media noise, but from moral anesthesia. I want this episode to begin with that image seared and codified in your brain, because it captures the crisis of our time. A mass spiritual sedation mediated by televised violence and sanctified by political immunity. Here in ICU, we are cutting through the static. We are cutting through the deception. This is not just critical analysis, it's alarm. And it is ignited by a question. How have we allowed nuclear superpowers to become the world's unspoken executioner, while the victims are framed as provocateurs? Let's process that for a second. Let's process that for a second. So tonight, we hold every actor to account. Politicians, preachers, pundits, and we refuse the lies. We strip away every self-defense pretext. Because if you don't name the true nature of this atrocity, you become part of it. So let's address the how did we get here again question. To do that, we start by examining the programming of our perception. On that note, let's talk programming. Why is it that Palestinian attacks, bombings, murders, kidnappings, and so forth are labeled terrorism? But when Israel flattens hospitals, schools, and refugee camps, it's retaliation. I wonder sometimes, for such a supposedly mighty and far superior force, Israel, where's the pinpoint accuracy you are labeled masters of? Why indiscriminate bombings? This is not coincidence. This is conditioning. From American pulpits to BBC children's, decades of narrative engineering have taught the world to assign moral innocence to Israel, no matter the body count. No more. No more. Here are some key facts for you. According to the United Nations Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OSHA, more than 37,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza as of June 2025. And the vast majority of these murders are women and children. So these are lineages that have been severed forever. Yes, we recognize some of the actions that were undertaken by Hamas. But there's a better way to target those who harm your citizens. That doesn't involve murdering tens of thousands of defenseless innocent. Aren't y'all, Israel, a better trained, better equipped, and far superior force? Here's another fact. Reports from Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International document indiscriminate Israeli airstrikes on civilian areas. Many of these have been identified as constituting potential war crimes. And yet, the programming continues. Lies, they lie about them. And the claim is what? Oh, Hamas is hiding among civilians. But you have superiorly trained special operations forces who can go there and do targeted removals of those who do harm against your citizens. Why don't we leverage that? Despite all of this, despite all these atrocities, we still have that media machine that feeds into that war machine. We have outlets like CNN and BBC continue to lead with headlines like, Israel responds after Hamas attack. Israeli retaliation leaves dozens dead. You see how they sanitize that language to suit a certain narrative. The aggressor is reframed as the aggrieved. The oppressed as the threat. Why? I will tell you why. Because truth does not serve empire. And this empire is armed, profitable, and desperately afraid of losing narrative control. From my humble informed purview, Israel, as currently depicted in our global view, owes a significant moral obligation to the world. And they are failing in that regard with zero accountability. What is driving that narrative? Well, as we all know, in our world, as we've accepted it to be, everything starts and ends with money. We love it. We respect it. We give leeway to those who have it, regardless of their moral compass or lack thereof. So let's talk dollars as we examine the military-industrial complex, the blood pipeline. This is where we stop pretending. Here are some hard numbers for you. The 2024 Pentagon budget, right, exceeded $886 billion. Let that number sit on your nervous system for a moment. $886 billion. Defense contractors like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman spent millions lobbying Congress for new weapons deals. Yet, we say there's no corruption. What are campaign contributions? What is lobbying? Reframed corrupt. In 2023 alone, defense companies brought in over $400 billion, that's billion, from U.S. government contracts. My goodness. And simple grants that some people are applying for that would do good for most people in the world have been blocked by Uncle Donald. Yet, our deficit is blamed on social programs. Federal employees are fired in the name of cutting wasteful spending. In February of 2025, Congress passed a $14.1 billion standalone aid packet to Israel. Standalone aid packet to Israel. That means nothing was attached to it. $14.1 billion. All this while freezing global aid to invaded Ukraine, Africa, and Southeast Asia. And Trump, Uncle Donald, he froze nearly 90% of U.S. foreign aid with a single stroke of the pen through executive order. And with that same stroke, increased weapons aid to Israel. What are our priorities? Really? In my humble opinion, though informed, this is not neutrality. This is blood economics. A system that calls for no more wars, and that's what their lips sing constantly for us to hear. They say that all the while laying the... Sometimes speaking about these things get me a little bit worked up. They do this. They say these words while their actions show otherwise. They lay the economic foundation for endless conflict. Why have we allowed ourselves to be programmed like this? I view this as the global blood economy. As stated earlier, in 2024, the United States actually allocated $886 billion to its military. That amount, that sum, is far greater than the next 10 largest economies combined. How they allocate to their military. In the US, you should ask this question. While they are busy cutting federal employees, cutting jobs, cutting social programs, who gets these billions of dollars? Who gets this money? Not service members, I guarantee that. Because I've lived that life. While deployed in combat, service members could barely save $25K in a year-long deployment, all the while being in harm's way. Yet contractors who are sitting in protected zones and handing out towels in the gym are making $25K a month. Easy. And it's tax-free. What? So I come back to this, that towering sum of $886 billion. That sum dwarfs global aid budgets, public health funding, environmental defense, education, all of them combined. Still don't even come close to that sum. This isn't about defense, I tell you. I view this solely as defending profit. It's about keeping the military-industrial complex alive and thriving. That very machine that President Eisenhower warned us against in 1961. It's the engine of permanent war, a machine that needs enemies to justify itself, a machine that converts fear into contracts, terror into stock options. And in this machine, there are no civilians, only collateral. Hear me clearly. In this war machine, there are no civilians, only collateral. Ruminate on that for a second. They reframe peacetime. For this machine, there is no peace. There are only pauses. So when you hear them talk about we're in a period of peace, no, we're in a period of pause from war. Because only pauses justify their end goal. And those pauses serve to recalibrate for the next op. That machine offers no justice, only justifications for war. And we, the people, have been told over and over again that this is safety. But here's the necessary spiritual reframing. We can no longer be framed in any way, shape, or form. We'll never allow ourselves to be that. But most importantly, war should and will never or can never be framed as strategy. War is product. Short and simple. And you, I, the public, are the consumer. Marketed to endlessly with that reframing structure that they put every day. With images of tanks and rhetoric of threat. We are allowed in a programmed manner to give them that leeway. And we then acquiesce to their will, allowing them to play on our fear. And we have handed to them, either knowingly or otherwise, the marketing authority to a sprawling system, the military-industrial complex. That same industrial complex that President Howard warns us against. But we didn't heed the warnings. That's why that complex is now fully operational and unchallenged across the globe. It appears, from my purview, that the world has given warmongers, Israel, Russia, and others around the globe, that global license to kill. To whose benefit, I ask? You? And I? No. Definitely not. So are we blind or deaf? So, I want us now to begin examining our blind spot, the one that is affording Israel's global license to kill, and how we assign Israel exceptionalism while we engage in our own selective mourning. We must follow the money, the U.S.-Israel bond, and to do so honestly, we must ask real questions. How did Israel become so militarized so fast while still being called and perceived as vulnerable? But let's speak what many others are afraid to say. Do you know that Israel is the most heavily funded foreign military project in modern American history? Israel, in essence, it's America in the Middle East. It has nuclear weapons. It has Iron Dome, a defense strategy and mechanism that even service members deployed around the globe in harm's way don't benefit from. And it has the unflinching backing of the United States. What's behind all of that? Why was modern-day Israel established in its current location? What are the current justifications for its claims to be perpetually on the brink of extinction? And we accept it. It's the machine at work. All this, meanwhile, entire blocks of Gaza are reduced to rubble. 13,000 Palestinian children dead in the span of 1 year. Hospitals bombed. Aid convoys targeted. Schools leveled. Is this godly? When did this become acceptable to us? Programmed through 5-second news clips. That's what we have allowed them to do. With global headlines still reading, Israel has the right to defend itself. Everybody has the right to defend themselves. How do you go about defending yourself is what matters. Ask yourself, defend itself from what? From children? From starvation? From the international law that it routinely violates? I wonder sometimes, what spell has been cast on our collective psyche that allows us, the world, to watch child after child die, get murdered, get assassinated, get eliminated, and we still sit Israel as the victim? If this happens anywhere else, it's labeled pedicide. I want to be clear. I want us to be clear. I want us to start opening up to truthfulness. This is not and will never be about excusing Hamas or Iran or any other nations engaged in such atrocities. This is about refusing to sanctify slaughter when it's politically convenient. We must view these acts through an unbiased truth lens. Here are some additional facts for you. Are you aware that the U.S. gives Israel $3.8 billion annually? That is the standard. That means every year, $3.8 billion of your, mine, tax dollars are sent to Israel in military aid under a 10-year memorandum of understanding signed during President Obama's administration. And that was long before even he took office. Seems as if we just keep renewing these things and label them differently, but all for the same purpose. In 2025, the U.S. Congress approved an additional $8.7 billion in emergency military support as part of a $95 billion global supplemental bill. More than Ukraine, more than Taiwan, more than any other nation in need received. All of this while cutting core programs here at home. Because they claim social programs add to our bloated deficit. Really? Really? Get this. Israel has received more cumulative U.S. aid than any other nation on earth since World War II. I guarantee you will not find any headline that highlights this. No media outlets, no so-called watchdogs, no one. So what happens with this? And with this funding, Israel maintains one of the most advanced arsenals on earth. The latest F-35 jets, AI-guided drones, bunker-busting bombs, and a clandestine nuclear arsenal that neither the U.S. nor Israel would acknowledge publicly. What for? That's what I ask. What for? And all of this, this arsenal, while simultaneously Israel continues to expand illegal settlements. Even though we have presidents who have stood up against that and said that publicly, they just continue. Defy UN resolutions and deny Palestinians the right to clean water, free movement, or safety. And when people stand up now to try to fight for these rights, they are labeled terrorists. So ask yourself this: why the blank check? From these facts, it is clear to me that Israel is not just a country. Does this have anything to do with the Bible? That abused book that people use to justify whatever narrative that they want to take? Or is it because Israel is a strategic outpost for U.S. military and economic interests in the Middle East? So imagine this: as millions suffer from hunger, vaccine shortages, climate collapse, children dying from preventable diseases, the U.S. Congress quietly votes billions to sustain overwhelming violence. At the beginning of this special episode, you guys listened to a song They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor, like Tupac said. Tupac clearly stated this over a decade ago. And we're still here. They got money for war, but they can't feed the poor. Wow. When is enough enough? As stated earlier, the U.S. sends $3.8 billion, that is $3.8 billion annually in military aid to Israel to 2028. Just let that sink in for a second. And when you hear them talk about cutting programs here at home next time, let that figure be at the back of your mind. And in 2025, an additional $4 billion in emergency package was rushed through Congress. And of course, they have the minions in the Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, since October of 2023 alone, at least $12.5 billion more in U.S. military aid was approved. The 3.8 regular that I mentioned, and another 8.7 billion supplemental. That's according to reputable sites, even the Library of Congress. That translates into F-35s, drones, bunker busters, and Iron Dome interceptors, while Gaza burns and Fed workers doged out of a facade of saving the federal government money and curbing wasteful spending. So a federal salary, a federal employee, that life-sustaining job that they have is considered wasteful spending. That machine is alive and thriving. Meanwhile, over 37,000 Palestinian women and children have been killed, many by bombs that can be traced directly to U.S. factories. So I ask myself, does made in America equate to death? So let's begin the reframe. You're in the ICU. Like I've stated, this is not collateral damage. It is structural genocide powered by American tax dollars. And yet, the narrative remains. Israel is defending itself. In this broadcast, you, the viewer, and the sitter on the couch, myself, and Uncle Donald, are the ones being defended against conscience. Let's view that U.S. aid paradox. In essence, dictates who lives and who dies. Let's assess America's turn, how the empire needs conflict, the legacy of lies, Trump, Iran, strategic sabotage engaged across the globe to provide justification, because that's what the machine needs, justification. That's what that industrial complex needs. Simple. As long as we can justify our actions, we are good to go. In 2015, I know most of us don't remember this, President Obama helped secure the Iran nuclear deal. This pact was designed to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. Would they use inspectors? Limits and accountability that was built into this. And as soon as Uncle Donald got into office during his first term, he tore that up in 2018, unilaterally withdrawing the U.S. from the JCPOA, despite Iran's reported full compliance as verified by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Uncle Donald, bluster. Having no evidence that Iran violated the deal and no support from any global allies, that didn't matter to him. Just pure ego and a vendetta against Obama's legacy. It's always someone else's fault. You see how many times he blames Joe Biden? never takes accountability for his own actions. That is it. It's just sad that we have a sitting president who blames everyone else but his ill-developed ego. No accountability for failures due to his incompetence. To support this purview, here are some additional facts for you. Trump ordered the assassination of Iran's top general, and the JCPOA withdrawal reignited regional tensions, opening the door for new justifications for strikes in Syria and Iraq. Safety, that's what they sell to us. Protecting America's interest. Uncle Donald reignited the nuclear race by withdrawing the US from that agreement. And now, years later, the very nuclear weapons he made more likely to happen are being used as the excuse for preemptive strikes against Iran. Wonderful. In 2025, America is conducting preemptive airstrikes, air raids across the globe under the false banner of preventing nuclear escalation, when in fact, it dismantled the only deal that prevented one. I mean, this to me is what strategic self-sabotage looks like. You ignite a fire, then sell yourself as a firefighter to put out that said fire. And if we've even paid attention to the last news cycles, right? When you went to this conference, he was called daddy by some foreign leader because of claims he is preventing squabbling children, that's Iran and Israel, from continuing to fight against each other. Really? What a fragile ego. Wow. And while we're on it, Trump also began placing into top military roles on strategic military boards billionaires and private war profiteers. So think Eric Prince of Blackwater. Think Steven Feinberg of Cerberus Capital. Think wealth. Think power. War stocks with zero accountability. God. These individuals aren't diplomats. They are weapons investors. And they are pushing war, not because it's moral, but because it's marketable. Having the power to do something doesn't mean you have the moral authority to do so. But, I mean, I'd expect no less from a draft dodger. Do you guys remember when Trump said he didn't want any war? Remember that? But everything he did and continues to do is laying the groundwork for exactly that, war. But I want us to be cautious here for a second. Because I'm not going to pretend, and I don't want us to pretend. So let's not, however, pretend that this began with Trump or Biden or Obama, or that it would end with him. The war machine is not broken and has never been. It's performing exactly as it's designed. And in my informed opinion, this is where hypocrisy takes form. In early 2025, President Trump signed Executive Order 14169, halting 90% of U.S. aid-funded foreign aid through automatic stop work orders. The State Department freeze shut down programs for HIV treatment, climate resilience, education, counter-narcotics, just to name a few, effectively pausing life-saving global health operations. And here again, we find another facade presented to us as attempting to reframe cost savings. But why are they doing all these cuts? Israel and Egypt were exempt. Their military aid continues uninterrupted. Why? Again, back to what are our priorities? House Republicans went even further, passing a rescission package, clawing back $9.4 billion in foreign humanitarian aid, including for invaded Ukraine, Africa, environmental initiatives, and so forth. Meanwhile, according to Reuters, military aid to Israel rose significantly. Why this distortion? It's simple. From their peer view, one blood is sacred, while the rest are expendable. So let's do one thing. Let's do one thing a little differently today. Let's examine some of the key players here. I know we talked about Trump. Let's examine Netanyahu and the war prestige. Netanyahu and the politics of perpetual conflict. That's that war prestige. Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been in power for a combined 17 years and counting, has built his political career on the narrative of existential fear. He leverages fear to hold on to that power, to gain that relevance. And we allow it. The people of Israel allow it. The vast majority of Israelis want that dual state, that two state that a lot of presidents have advocated for, to give both people of Palestine and the people of Israel the rights to govern themselves. But Netanyahu doesn't. So he uses fear to stoke those inner weaknesses in the people, so they keep him in power. Back to the strong man. Here are some historical facts for you. Do you guys remember when Netanyahu publicly opposed the Iran nuclear deal because President Obama was in power at the time? From day one, he was vocal about his opposition to that deal by claiming it will pave the path to an Iranian bomb. And for those who didn't see through that, it was simple. Their actions, Netanyahu and Trump, paved the way to Iran getting a bomb. But that was what? To set up the stage for them now to be able to attack Iran. And this is all counter to the intended purpose of that agreement. And the reason why he stood against it is because it did not align with his warmongering, fear-driven strategies. Netanyahu continues to stoke public fear over Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iranian proxies for over 2 decades now. And he garners billions in weapons and political leverage. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Israel is believed to possess over 80 uninspected nuclear warheads. All of this developed outside of any international inspection regime. Hence, it's untouched by the IAEA oversight. Why is this acceptable? Everybody else has to play by the rules except Israel. Why? So Netanyahu and Trump reciprocated. Trump overseeing shipments of $3 billion worth of bombs to Israel by February 2025, vetoing ceasefire resolutions and sanctioning ICC officials investigating Israeli war crimes. Indeed, these two are true comrades in the global war machine. And now, Netanyahu is pushing war with Hezbollah, bombing southern Lebanon, while Gaza lies in ruins. This is a man who is not just unwilling to stop conflict, he feeds on it. It's proven. that every escalation equals more aid, more votes, more control, which feeds into what again? Justification. That's what that machine needs. It's obvious that Benjamin Netanyahu's politics thrive on existential fear, from Iran, Hamas, to Hezbollah. This fear translates to votes, which in turn translates to arms sales, and in turn keeps him relevant and in power. So these two, Bibi and Uncle Donald, aren't allies. In my view, they're co-conspirators. How are they able to market and sell such hate and be allowed to commit such atrocities? It's simple. We the people. Because we allow it. We even celebrate it. How did we get here? Again. That question just repeats over and over again, doesn't it? It lends to rhetoric. And we allow ourselves to be programmed over and over again to suit their objective. So let's examine how through the dictionary of violence, which is the same as the dictionary of empire, and which tells us who gets to be labeled a terrorist and who gets to be labeled a victim. In my informed opinion, this is the ultimate programming, where we allow empire to write that dictionary. Empire decides who gets to be called hero and who gets to be labeled terrorist. Here's some historical facts for you. The US dropped atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing over 200,000 civilians. We napalmed children in Vietnam. We invaded Iraq under false pretenses. We funded death squads in Latin America. We backed Saudi Arabia as it bombs Yemen into famine. We assassinate leaders across the globe and destabilize nations. Yet somehow, we are never the terrorist. Truth be told, we are a violent loving bunch. We love violence, especially when said violence is not targeted at us. We have somehow distanced ourselves from that direct implication. Look at what we enjoy watching. Just violence when others commit violence against each other. I've been in war, and my first-hand experience is not one that I want anyone else to experience. Let's be clear. Terrorism is real. Extremism is real. But so too is state terror. So too is manufactured crises. So too is morally selective grief. Because the way I look at it, if you're only horrified when the other side kills, if your outrage only ignites when Western lives are lost, then you're not grieving. You're parroting. War depends on language, and has always done. When Israel bombs a refugee camp, it is framed as retaliation. When Palestinians or Iranians do the same, then it's labeled terrorism. When the US dropped nuclear bombs or carpet bombed Vietnam, when it invaded Iraq on false pretenses and now bombs Syria and Iran, it's termed defense of freedom. Yet, take note, internal State Department documents flagged 500 plus suspected Israeli violations. Where was the reporting or outrage on that? Nowhere, as these were suppressed. This is not blind morality. From my humble and informed purview, this is branded hypocrisy. And we either fight this neural colonization or allow ourselves to be manipulated into programmed consent. Either way, we must own our role in this for any change to take effect and last. Some ask, how do we go about doing that? Let's go ahead and start by examining neural warfare and the programming of your consent. I want us to know this fact. The greatest war isn't on the battlefield. It's in your brain. From childhood, you were told conquest was courage, that our soldiers were noble, that war brings peace, that they hate our freedom. Are we actually free? Or are we programmed to buy that facade of freedom? Who does this serve? Because I know for a fact it's not the citizenry that strive every single day to make ends meet, that strives every single day to survive. But here's what they don't tell you. Peace is not profitable. Compassion is not marketable. And empires never apologize. They rename and justify. You were programmed to cheer for violence dressed in valor, to mistake military budgets for national strength, to watch drone footage like it's a video game, to forget that every bomb has an address, and more likely than not, it hits that address with devastating consequences. I ask you to reclaim your mind. Know for a fact that it's no battlefield, but accept the fact that it is the battleground. From Hollywood to cable news, violence is justified, sanitized, or even muted. We consume war dipped in righteousness and salt water. We are told that to question the bombs is to be unpatriotic. We are told that silence is patriotism. But now you know better. And knowing is holy. Once you know, you can never not know. And you can never remain quiet again. Because in my informed opinion, silence is compliance. And I refuse to accept your programming consent. So let's be loud, because we refuse to be programmed from their financial gain. We refuse to be programmed to support warmongers and their war machines. So in closing, let's start uncouching ourselves from moral anesthesia. So picture this. Us on the ICU couch, Uncle Donald, the unblinkered television, all part of a spectacle you were never asked to consent to. Through Bible verses misused to sanctify slaughter, through cherry-picked prophets, through war as moral righteousness, Israel's violence becomes holy defense. Even when the blood dries on the screen, we nod and whisper amen. Amen to killings and maiming. Or do we not trust what we are witnessing as true? It's time to wake up. Time to wake up. Time to unlearn every sanitized war lie. Time to demand that empathy is universal. Time to disrupt the script that privileges some victims while simultaneously erasing others. Because until we recognize every child's life is sacred, whether in Jerusalem, whether in Gaza, whether in Tehran, whether in Kinshasa, whether in Mogadishu, whether in Kabul, we remain infected by warmongering. This is the war for truth. Who's profiting from your silence? Ask yourself, who's making money off your hate? Who trained you to see one child's death as a tragedy and another's as an unfortunate statistic, a collateral? Know this, if your empathy has borders, it's not empathy, it's programming. And let me remind you that this isn't about sides, us versus them. This is about sight. And it's time for us to start seeing clearly. Here in ICU, let's reclaim our no rant posture through inner authority. Here, we do more than diagnose. We demand healing. From Gaza to Tehran, from Washington to Tel Aviv, the ICU is full. But so is our will to resist warmongering in all its forms. And so I ask you to carry what serves justice, release what serves propaganda, walk with ancestral knowledge, and remember to learn to trust and follow your conscience. Stay awake, stay critical, stay loud. From the ICU in the ICU. And I said that specifically for a purpose. From the ICU in the ICU, because the ICU stands for intentionally competent you, to the ICU where your inner consciousness is unraveled, where the truth is no longer a whisper. It is time to heal a world that is worn out with war, our world. Because what we are witnessing is not just a war on people, it's a war on truth, a war on empathy, a war on God. The warmongers want us to believe one side is always justified, one nation is always innocent, one theology is always superior. But let's sit back on the couch for a second, across from Uncle Donald, and ask the unholy questions. What kind of God chooses one people's suffering over another's survival? What kind of democracy funds death but punishes dissent? What kind of Christian blesses bombs aimed at children? This is not spiritual warfare. This is warfare dressed in spiritual drag. But here in the ICU, we refuse to be sedated by slogans. Let's question every headline. Let's mourn every life. Let's rebuke every system that uses scripture as shrapnel. And to that, we can unequivocally and with defiance say amen. Until next time, remember to always carry what serves you, release what doesn't, and keep walking forward with your ancestors at your back and your inner compass ahead as your guiding staff. Until then, may you diagnose wisely, resist kindly, and reimagine boldly. Please subscribe, engage, share. Remember to breathe, breathe. And as always, never forget to send love to your nervous system. I see you. Thank you.
They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor like Tupac said. They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor like Tupac said. They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor like Tupac